What's up, brother? Let's find out what pod. What's up, gents? What's up, gents? New pod alert. Pod dropped. Episode 217. Let me see if I can pull up the topics real quick here. So, Randolph. So, peace be to you, my brother. Peace be to you. Let's see here. This week's pod. We opened up with some Charlotte news. Then we discussed Poor Minds, Cam Newton conversation. I was gonna bring that up today, but Cam gave us another one, so we're gonna talk about Cam tonight. As y'all can see, I have Jesse Jackson on the screen. We lost Afro-American brother this week. You know what? I got something I want to add to that. See if I can pull that up real quick. Oh, let's see. It gotta be on YouTube. That is funny. That's hilarious that they do not have that on YouTube. All right, let's get started. Anyway, pod this week. Poor Minds Cam, Kevin Durant burner, RIP Jesse Jackson. We're going to open up with a video with Jesse Jackson. Gavin goes in on Tyra Banks on a top model on Netflix documentary. I'm probably going to check that out tonight. Ring, unpublished. They say they deleted it. They just unpublished it. Their dog tracking AI service. We discussed Uncle Nearest, All-Star Weekend, and then we wrapped it up. Yesterday was a pretty solid pod. Go check it out. About an hour, 46 minutes. So, you know, we done moved to long form. Congrats to everybody who bullied us into doing so. But let's open it up with Jesse Jackson. Let's go ahead and check this video out real quick here.
Jesse's father, age 33, was already married and living next door in their segregated neighborhood of Greenville, South Carolina. Jesse Lewis Jackson, who died today at the age of 84, did not receive his full name until age 14. That's when his stepfather, Charles Jackson, adopted him. Soon thereafter, Jesse was sent to live with his grandmother, a young black boy in the Jim Crow South, rejected by his father and not exactly cherished by his stepfather. That he, Jesse Lewis Jackson, would grow up to be a significant figure in the civil rights movement and the first black man to wage not one, but two serious and vote-getting campaigns for the presidency is a story of hope kept alive. You've probably seen that clip today, the Keep Hope Alive clarion call at the end of Jackson's thunderous speech at the 1988 Democratic National Convention. Properly so, because it's worth remembering that Jackson branded hope before Barack Obama did. Jackson's political audacity predated Obama's as well. It was vastly more difficult for civil rights activist Jackson to seek the presidency in 1984 when he did it for the first time than it was for Illinois Senator Obama to do so in 2007. That is why Obama, in a statement, said today he, stood on Jackson's shoulders. Jackson's were sturdy but imperfect shoulders. He aggravated some in the civil rights movement who saw him as a publicity hound, reckless with finances and personal choices. In the mid-'80s, he apologized for inadvertently sowing divisions between blacks and Jews. Jackson was also, we should note, among the first unapologetic populists of the modern era, saying at the Democratic Convention in 1984, his constituency was the, quote, desperate, the damned, the disinherited, the disrespected, and the despised. While the means, methods, and racial orientation certainly differed, it's not that great a distance between Jackson's rhetoric and President Trump's vow in 2016 and many times since to uplift America's forgotten men and women. Perhaps that's why Trump has paid tribute to Jackson more than once today. A little later on, Ed O'Keefe will help us understand that relationship. Jackson was a bridge between hard-fought victories for voting rights and public accommodations in the 1960s and the multiracial coalition, foreshadowed by Jackson's use of rainbow as a metaphor for America, that first elected, then re-elected Obama. Jackson spoke as a preacher, a moralist in the political arena.
If an issue is morally right, it will eventually be political. It may be political and never be right. Fannie Lou Hamer didn't have the most votes in Atlantic City. Well, her principles have outlasted every delegate who voted to lock her out. Rosa Parks did not have the most votes, but she was morally right. Dr. King didn't have the most votes about the Vietnam War, but he was morally right.
Fannie Lou Hamer led a protest for black Mississippians at the Democratic Convention in 1964. Rosa Parks led the Montgomery bus boycott. Dr. Martin Luther King led the movement. Jackson, sometimes imperfectly, tried to inherit and advance. In that 1988 convention speech, Jackson described his quest and something he thought of as a kind of contagion of courage.
As for Jesse Jackson, I'm tired of sailing my little boat for inside the harbor bar. I want to go out where the big ships float, out on the deep where the great ones are. And should my frail craft prove too slight for waves that sweep those billows o'er, I'd rather go down in the stirring fight than drowse to death at the sheltered shore. We got to go out, my friends, where the big boats are.
Jackson got out to where the big boats are, and there he stayed. Georgia Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock, inspired by Jackson in many ways, will join us for a remembrance. But first, as I promised, Ed O'Keefe joins us now for more on the Trump-Jackson relationship. Ed?
And I'm going to stop it there. Just wanted to remember, Jesse Jackson for all the, the terrible reasons that we don't think of Jesse Jackson sometimes. I think we forget that he's from an era, and probably the last of men that came from the era of, regarding civil rights. And I think it's a good moment to reflect that while Jesse Jackson dies at 84 years old, that he was a contemporary of Dr. King and Malcolm X and Edgar Mevers. Like, those men deserve to be here. They deserve to die at 84 years old. And they were not allowed to, due in part to the system. And I think sometimes when we look at the things that we did not like about Jesse Jackson, right? The idea that he was a publicity hound, the idea that he said that he was on the balcony. He's been accused of being an informant. And some of those things may be true. Some of them may not be true at all. But I think this is a good opportunity to reflect on the fact that he, lived to the age of 84 years old. And we all should be so lucky, one. But two, there's a lot of men that deserve to be here also, right? Like, the fact that he's passing, it's a good opportunity to reflect upon what was taken from us and why it was taken from us and why, 40 years ago, this man had the audacity to run for president and to look at the lack of improvement that we have in our community. And a lot of that is due in part to the fact that he was left on an island here by himself. And whether he was compromised or not, he definitely was inspirational, right? The guy moved from moved from Greenville to Chicago, adopted the city of Chicago. You know, you heard that his dad was married, never accepted him. Stepdad did not care for him, but you know his last name comes from his stepfather. So you know the man grew up fighting those challenges. Moves to Chicago. He actually had a scholarship to play football at University of Illinois, one of the best football programs in the country at the time, right? So Division I scholarship athlete that had to leave Illinois and graduate from North Carolina A&T because of the racism that he endured at North Carolina A&T. Graduates from A&T, gets into the best divinity school in the country, University of Chicago Divinity School, leaves the divinity school in 1964 to hit the trail with Dr. King and everybody else in that time frame in order to fight for civil rights. So this is an opportunity for us to acknowledge and recognize the man, and maybe see that perhaps maybe we was sort of misled from who this man was, and perhaps at some point he became tired of trying to fight. Imagine fighting for civil rights and going through the civil rights era of the 60s, right? Having to leave a Division I scholarship to go to North Carolina A&T because of the racism that you've endured at the University of Illinois, to get accepted into one of the best, if not the best, divinity school in the world, and to go and run for civil rights, and to watch that civil rights leader, you know, die in front of you, be murdered in front of you, and still less than 20 years later, despite that, you still decide that you're going to have the audacity to run for the president of the United States, right? Imagine what that takes in order to do that. Like, imagine that, right? And you run in 1984 against probably the most popular president, perhaps of all time. To my knowledge, I don't think anybody has won an electoral map better than Ronald Reagan did when he ran for presidency. So, like, imagine that, right? And you say in 1984, I'm going to run for that. And then, despite when he ran for it, I was going to play his speech tonight, which was highly progressive, and not progressive in the sense of what you have today, but progressive in the sense of the way that black men have performed. Black men had churches back then, you know, where Jesse Jackson himself, being that he was a Christian and a pastor, being against anti-abortion, but being inclusive in his message, right? I don't want to put my ideology upon you, right? Like, that's the platform that he ran on. He ran on a platform that is probably more progressive than anything that any Democrat has ever ran on. Ever. So why is somebody that, you know, I guess in the 90s, when I'm in my late teens, early 20s, and I'm learning politics and I'm learning about civil rights leaders, and maybe perhaps, you know, me as a youth, like I bought into the ideal of, you know, he's a publicity hound, right? If somebody's discussing racism, he's going to go there and grift from it. And perhaps that's just what we was told from the media. Perhaps if we actually look at the man and see someone that, you know, saw a civil rights leader murdered and still had the audacity to run for president against Ronald Reagan, you know, against Robert Mundell, some of the most popular Democrats of all time in the era of the dog whistle, right? Him running in 1984, 1988, and, you know, becoming popular but losing, but perhaps, you know, being compromised at that point because they saw the influence that he had, and the fact that the DNC never embraced, you know, a Jesse Jackson, right? Perhaps we see why we are where we are today. So I just wanted to take a moment to reflect on the life of one of the last civil rights leaders that we have from the era, if not the last, if I'm not mistaken. And for us to recognize that, you know, while he is passing away, what would our community have been if we had all of our civil rights leaders, right? What if they were all allowed to pass away when they're older, right? Men that believe in rights for everybody, right? Men that believe in, you know, even if I disagree with it personally, right? I want America to decide to have it, right? To be anti-war, you know, as we're building up, you know, forces for show or for real in the Gulf right now. Like, imagine a man 40 years ago saying that, we should use our minds to come to a conclusion, right? Not our hands, not guns, not weapons. So big up to Jesse, man. And if I haven't bored the heck out of you so far, pod is about to get fun real quick. Well, the live is about to get fun real quick. I do need to say why you're on here. The top tier Patreon, we almost have that all the way figured out. I will say, if you do have a resume and you join the top tier Patreon, send your resume to mike@blackmenstrategies.com. mike@blackmenstrategies.com. I'll just confirm that you have subscribed, and I will do the resume review, and I'll send you a link so you and I can sit on a Google Meets and go over everything and do a quick intake. It's not a full intake, but we will do a resume review. I look at your resume. If you have a job that you're looking at, send that over too. It's in the instructions though when I send you the email, everything that I need from you. But that is going. So if you are subscribed to the top tier, you will get a free merch, and you also get the resume review. So we're trying to make sure that it has all the value in the world that you would have it. Sharpton was probably the grifter for real. Jesse was last of the kind. Absolutely purpose. Absolutely. Yeah. King, Malcolm, Medgar, Dr. Newton. I mean, we definitely lost something in the black community. But we're gonna get to that too. Hey, what's up, Marcia? Gav keep telling me that you keep trying to hook me up. Let's hop into it. Yeah, Fred Hampton. I mean, so many, dude. So it's a shame that we don't have the things that we need. But I just wanted to remember Jesse Jackson real quick here. All right. This is what I want to hop on tonight, though. Let me see if I can find this real quick. Where are we going to start here? Do we want to start with the Clifton Powell clip? No, we're gonna start with the Cam clip. Let me find the Cam clip. Now, I gotta start this. Where do I need to start this at? Is it in the middle?
You've been with your husband how many years?
Not that many. We knew.
9 months.
Mm-hmm.
The hierarchy there is like,
That's really hard for me to even wrap my mind around, because I won't be baby mamaed without a commitment of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for me to wrap my mind around having a 3-year-old and then having a new man. Now, I know that happens every single day, and there is no right or wrong way. But so this is my question. Do you feel like women's value gets lowered when they have multiple children by multiple men?
All right. I'm going to pause it right here. Because when I first saw this clip, I was like, you know what, Cam? You got to know better, right? You have to know better, right? But then when I went and watched a longer part of the clip, I realized that she used the word value, right? So when Cam makes this response, it is terrible, by the way. Terrible response. But when you're in a conversation, sometimes you mirror the person across from you language to show them that you're listening to them. So I can't really be mad at Cam, but what we're going to talk about is going to be a little bit different after you hear his reply.
I just think that the reality of that answer is women's value get lower the more children that they have.
Break that down.
Because, and I was having this conversation, with one of the mother of my children, and she's still fine. Mm-hmm. You feel what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But like I was telling her, I was like, yo, the guy that you're dating or will date, if he ain't willing to love on these 5 children that you have, that ain't the guy for you. Because when I came into your life, I was willing to accept you and whatever you had. And there's guys that's out there that's just going to say, them ain't my kids, I want you. Well, that ain't how it worked. But that's not to say that she can't find nobody.
Right.
I'm pretty sure she has somebody.
Yeah. Leaving a woman with 5 kids is wild. But that's not why I'm here. The reason why I'm here is the words that's used here is a woman's value lower? And that's a problematic discourse, right? We can't discuss humans' value, right? We cannot do that. We do not understand nuance. We get way too emotional. We insert ourselves in these situations. We internalize what's being heard. The language is poor here. And again, this is not Cam's fault because she says is a woman's value lowered, right? The conversation that they're trying to have right now is, does the desirability changes when someone has multiple children? And I think if we actually look at it in that sense, right, is desirability different, right? Not for the one-off man, right, but for most men, right? And I'd even say for women, right? Like, if I had 10 kids, unless my kids are named Venus, Serena, LeBron, Steph, Sonny Lee, like you're not really gonna be interested in 10 kids, right? You're really not, right? Unless there's a massive amount of wealth, that's involved here, right? But there is a conversation to have, but the language, the wording here is bad, right? We can't say what humans value, is. We're not gods, not gods like that, right? The word that they're looking for here is, is a woman desirability lower or is it higher, right? Not just lower, not just saying, hey, is a woman desirability low? Like, no, let's use it, let's juxtapose it against the opposite, right? If a woman has 5 children, is she more desirable or less desirable, right? If a man have 5 baby mamas, is he more desirable or less desirable? And that's a real conversation. And we do have to be able to have conversations of nuance if we want to move the community forward. Because the community is shifting at this moment, right? Like, yeah, we just discussed Jesse Jackson passing away and how we should have had all of our civil rights leaders that should have been here. We didn't have them. But a lot of us are picking up on the things that they taught. A lot of us are picking up on where they was tremendous. And a lot of us are picking up on the places that cost them. And we're saying, well, we're not going to do the things that cost them, but we are going to do the places, we are going to talk about the things that helped where they were tremendous. And I hate, I hate that she used that language and Cam mirrored what she said. And now he's getting blamed for responding to her question. And again, right, that can happen to anybody, right? I pod once a week. I go live once a week. I am having constant conversations. And I know when I'm mirroring somebody's conversation. And I know sometimes when I say something, I have to go back and be like, all right, hold on. This is what I'm trying to say, right? Sometimes it's intentional, right? Like when I say I'm not pro-black, right? That's intentional because that's meant to start a conversation. But sometimes you're mirroring language. And Cam is mirroring language right here. And he's having a terrible week on social media. But the conversation on is desirability higher or lower, that's a real conversation. And we can either be honest about that or we can stay in delusion land. It's a real conversation. That is an actual conversation. But what we're going to wrap it up with tonight, y'all are going in on Clifton Powell here. Now, this roundtable, I went to see who put on this roundtable. I have not watched it because work is kicking my butt this week. I do hope that I can get to it tomorrow, that I can play it in the background. But this was put on by Consciously, who, if I'm 100% honest, I'm not a fan of, and BLR World, which is I guess is a charity for marginalized groups. So this idea that they're having a conversation on, gosh, what do they call it? What did they call this? What do they call this? Let me see here. What did they call this? It was something like Black Men, Do You Trust Black Women? But let's get the actual name for it. This is called Black Men Trust Black Women Roundtable. So it's already adversarial, right? Like, because the inference here is that black men do not trust black women, right? Like the inference, again, the roundtable name is Black Men Trust Black Women. This is presented by Sister Song and BLD Power, and it was moderated or hosted by Conscious Lee, right? So again, the conversation is already, you have to assume, if it's saying black men trust black women, right? It's not saying black men definitely trust black women, or we're glad that black men trust women. It's saying black men trust black women roundtable, right? So there's already an adversarial tint to it, right? It's saying that black men do not trust black women. Now, the irony in this is if you actually look at polling data of who support black women's agency, right? Black males, and I'm gonna refer to them as Afro-American males, or refer to myself or us as Afro-American males, black American males, actually support women's rights, women's agency at a higher rate than actually black women do. Right? Now, it's not like 70% black men, 30% black women, but it's like 42% black men supports women's rights or black women's rights, and it's like 40% black women. Right? So that's the irony here. Okay? Let's also remember, there is not a more progressive voting bloc in the world, not just the country. There is not a more progressive voting bloc in the world than Afro-American men, right? 78% of black men voted for Kamala, depending if you're using the Indian dialect or not, right? And that's going to be the highest in the world. Nobody else. Kamala would not get those votes in India if she was in India, okay? She would not get those votes in Jamaica if she was in Jamaica. And she's Indian Jamaican, right? Afro-American men voted for her at the highest rate than anybody else in the world would ever vote for her, right? Black men are the most egalitarian. And this might be something that we need to fix. But when it comes to agency, by every metric, black men are the most egalitarian. So when I keep seeing roundtables that are about black men and, you know, the hell with the patriarchy and whatever else you see, I instantly know that it's BS because nobody else has a roundtable that they have to have, right? Like they are not having a Hispanic roundtable, and they should. They should 100% be having a Hispanic roundtable because I need y'all to stop calling yourselves Hispanic. I need y'all to be Colombian American, Mexican American, Dominican American, Puerto Rican American. Well, Puerto Ricans are American. My bad. But you get what I'm saying, right? I need to know the Nicaraguan American. I need to know where you're from, right? Brazilian American. We need to know Cuban American. Who's voting what, right? That's a roundtable that should be having, right? Even if it's in Spanish, I don't see that, right? I don't see that. But for some reason, black men keep getting rolled out as examples of who don't support women. Yeah, Brock, that's what I'm saying. Like, make yourself known. That Latino has to go. It does have to go. Because this last election, you know, either it went down in flames or it went up and it rose like the phoenix in flames, like depending on what side you're on. Right? But that's who should be having a round table right now. But somehow we keep having to bring in black men to be dressed down for no reason. Look, I know the reason. I've said many times that black men are the whipping boys. But what I want to play here, though, I want to play this right here because I want to discuss something that the conversation I often have with friends that I don't think I really have a lot on the pod. Where the heck is the volume? There we go.
Another era than any of you Negroes is talking about. And what I've learned, and I'm not saying I'm right, I think everybody is right. Because there's so many levels to this. But most of this was laid on our parents.
Yeah.
Listen to what he says right here.
Father was born in 1915 and his parents were slaves.
His parents, so Clifton is 70 years old. His parents was born in 1915. His parents was born in 1915. His parents, which means the knee that Clifton sat on for his grandma or his grandfather, right? Think about your grandmother or grandfather. The knee that he sat on, listen.
Well, his grandparents were slaves. So what I've learned is it's not your mother's fault. It's not your father's fault. It's not your fault. We were born into 450 years of post-slavery PTSD. I am 69, I'll be 70 in March.
And I agree with Clifton here. one of the things that I always tell guys is that sometimes I see men, my age and younger than me, we're so proud of ourselves because we're like, I'm doing something that my dad never did, right? And I oftentimes correct brothers when I see that because it's like, hey, your dad couldn't do that, right? You're not doing something that your father wanted to take you to the park, bro, right? But he grew up in an era where his parents, if his parents take him to the park, they would get spit on, right? If they would take them to the park, they'd get slapped. Their children would watch them be attacked, right? Like lynching wasn't the only terrorism that they had to deal with, right? People were peeing on people back then, right? And you could not retaliate. So imagine growing up in an era where your parents never take you to the park, right? And then when you're born, your father he doesn't even consider the park. It's not even something that occurs in his mind. The same way that a lot of them didn't really assume that they couldn't go to college, right? They'd never see a black president. They'd never drink out of a water fountain. They'd never sit down at a restaurant and not be discriminated against or have their food spat in. So what Clifton is saying right here, Clifton is saying like, hey, it's a lot of things our parents could not do. And I see brothers all the time be like, yeah, my dad never took me to the park. Well, your dad was never taken to the park. Before I started golfing, I would hear about a municipal golf course. I never knew what a municipal golf course was. I was in my 20s. I know what fucking municipal mean, right? I went to college, right? But I never understood that it was like, oh, this is from the county. Anybody can play here. Before I ever went to a golf course, there was an assumption that you still had to be some sort of member. No, it's municipal. You go to the website. If it's available to play, you can go and play. But I never had a clue, right? So when we're having conversations about our parents and our grandparents, and we're like, yo, we do so much better than what they're doing, right? We forget that the apartheid didn't officially end until the mid-70s. I was born about 5 years after the apartheid finally was coming to a close, right? It's like when the store closed at 10 o'clock, right? If you're still in there, they don't turn the lights off at 10, right? They turn the lights off after the last customer leave and they close up shop. So lights might not be cut off till 11:20, right? So when they passed the Civil Rights Act in 1964, they still had to get everybody out of the store, right? They still had to they didn't cut the lights off in 1964. Lights got cut off in 1975. And I hate when we do this thing. Clifton is absolutely right here. He's absolutely right. But let me let him finish.
I've just learned how to love. Mm-hmm. Our parents didn't know how to love. Their parents didn't know how to love. And if I could say anybody maybe had an edge, it was the women. That's why I celebrate black women.
I just want to talk about in Luke, make sure I say the name right, crop this part out. Okay. What Luke brought up was like accountability, like, yes, we can talk about, what our families did to us, all this, all that, but eventually, and I know why people try and say this, and I really don't like that, but eventually comes a point where you have to decide, how do I want to live my life? I haven't talked to my daddy in 6 years. I don't give a fuck about.
And this is his problem. But let's keep going.
What my family has gone through, I know where I will go. So it's like, you can only say that for so long. Black women are tired, and kind of like putting onto them like, hey, you didn't do this entirely, because everybody in here, several people have talked about going to counseling. Have that upon yourself. Stop waiting for a woman to tell you what you need to do. Take that upon yourself.
Let me address that real quickly. For me, I didn't know fucking how to love.
Can I say one more thing? No, I have to say this, because another thing that happens is, too, you live your life for so long, and I'm not meaning no disrespect by this.
It's all right, just say it, bro.
But when you hit your 60s and your 70s, I want to be right.
Okay, but let me...
I want to live my life right. I want someone to take care of me and protect me, and that's what a lot of women have issues with.
Because I'm living it right the fuck now.
As I said,
listen to
I said 60, good, but you're not going to disrespect me.
All right, we'll stop right there. I will say this. As where Clifton Powell belongs is where men are having conversations about accountability. right? And I think it's good for him. I'm impressed that at 70 years old, he's deciding to change. I give up. Like, once people hit about 35 plus, I don't really care no more. But once you hit about 40, 50, I think you are who you are. And if you do change, good for you. But it's not a debate. But this conversation that we keep having with people that are not our friends, people that are enemies of us, right? People that do not want to see you succeed, people that do not want to see you win, people that do not adore you, they do not respect you, they do not celebrate you, right? There is a time for men, especially dudes who are pro-black nuclear family, to stop trying to have these conversations with people that do not want that. Why would you try to have that conversation? Nobody else does this. Nobody else does this. Everybody else is moving at their own speed. I applaud Clifton for showing up for whatever reason that he showed up there. This is not the type of panel I will ever show up to. I have zero desire to sit with men that are enemies of the black community. Zero desire. We cannot keep blaming the most progressive, the most egalitarian, the most loving, right? Men that are running in the 80s against Ronald Reagan on progressive platforms and being relegated to null 20 years later just because they had the audacity to. You cannot keep trying to have conversations with people that hate you. This is what happened when you talk to older generations, right? You got young generations that do not even respect what the man here is trying to say, right? Because compassion that's a masculine trait, right? Care, grace, mercy. Anybody ever ask me what masculinity is? It's care, grace, is mercy. Those are the tenets of masculinity. But one of the things that I've realized is you can't care about anybody unless you have abundance, right? Which means, again, we got to elevate ourselves as black men. You must have abundance. You cannot extend grace unless you have time. You can't. If you are rushed, if you are pressed, if you don't have time, there's no place to extend grace because you're rushed, right? And mercy comes from power. If you have no power, you cannot extend mercy. So as black men, we do have to decide that we're going to be masculine. And we do have to understand that the tenets of masculinity is care, grace, and mercy. And Clifton is stuck in a bad place right now, right? Because as he is learning and still maturing in his 60s, which I hope we all are, I hope everybody looks back and look at the person who you were 10 years ago, and you should be utterly embarrassed by it. I am embarrassed at 35-year-old Pastor Mike Will. I am totally embarrassed. 25-year-old Pastor Mike Will, I act like that dude never even existed. I don't know what you're talking about. If you knew me at 25, you have no clue who I am. You just know my name. So I hope everybody matures and grows, right? And we're all going to mature and grow at different rates and different speeds. But one of the things that we do have to recognize is that if you are productive, you cannot be blessed in a toxic environment. It cannot happen. Always remember, God told Abraham, you have to leave, right? And he wasn't telling Abraham to leave his enemies, right? He was saying, I can't bless you amongst your family. He said, you got to leave your kindred. They are toxic. And when I look at the community right now, it is toxic. There is no way for us to develop and grow and elevate if we keep trying to have these bottom level conversations. We know what's right. We know that raising kids in 2-parent homes is the right thing to do. We know that. You don't have to have children out of wedlock. You can practice fertility awareness method. There's no excuse for, well, I don't know when my period is. You can buy fertility kits off of Amazon for $13. Like you can buy an ovulation kit off of Amazon for $13. You know when you ovulate. So the fact that we want to excuse every terrible behavior and the men at the top keep trying to have conversation with men at the bottom, we have to stop. We have to be done with these conversations. Y'all can go do what you want to do. Your life, your choice. That's your tribe. Pro-black nuclear family, this is our tribe. And if y'all tribe is 85% of the black community, hey, I'm pulling it for you. I'm pulling for you. Y'all 85. If pro-black nuclear family is 15% of the, if we're only 15% of the Afro-American population, bet. We're good on that. Let's stop having conversation with people that hate us. I agree, Mimi, but Mimi, I've actually heard the excuse that my ovulation date changes, right? My period isn't consistent. I've heard that excuse many, many times. But here's the thing: you can buy kits for under $20 where you can test your ovulation that morning if you want to. Hell, right before the act if you want to. You do not have to have babies out of wedlock. You really, really don't. And one of the things that's happened in our community, to go back to the Cam conversation, right? Whether or not your value is lower. Your value is not lower, right? But your desirability, right? Because what's happening is, as men become more aware of fertility and fertility awareness and what it takes to actually get pregnant, when men see what you have done and who you've done it with, right? It lowers your desirability to that man, because men are starting to understand. You can't just tell men anymore, well, you can get pregnant anytime. Like, no, you cannot. Men can get women pregnant anytime, but women can't get pregnant anytime. Right? That's just the truth. You can hate what I'm saying. You can clip what I'm saying. You can make me out to be a bad guy. You can say I got a big head and I'm fat. You know what I'm saying? You can use sign language, right? But the truth of the matter is, there's not an egg dropping every single day, every 28 days for the whole year. It just doesn't happen. Right? Whereas men, every single day, that thing is locked and loaded every single day. So if we're not going to have an honest conversation in our community about the best men on the planet for everything that you say you want, literally outside of money. But if you go to the top third of men, the money's there. If you go to the top third of black men, the money's there. They're egalitarian. They're progressive. They're masculine. And if those men are still saying like, yo, god damn, bro, come on. The community has to look at itself. All right, I'm done. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Appreciate y'all tuning in, man. I'm done. Rewatch it on, I'm pretty sure this goes to the Black Dash Club group on Facebook. I also think it goes to my Locked Out page if you're a friend of me on there, Salati. I agree, Mimi. That's where I'm at. I'm like leaving behind, man. It's time to retribe. It's time to separate. You got to be in a tactical retreat. Right? I can't be pro this. I can't be pro people that are enemies of the community. And this right here is another example of people not caring and not giving a damn. But that's all I got, folks. Appreciate y'all tonight. Again, if you're on the top tier Patreon, email me, mike@blackmenstrategies.com. Email me. I'll get you on the calendar. We'll go through that. I'm a 100% for the rest of the year is totally tuned into elevating ourselves to get to where we need to be. All right, so I don't say something stupid. Anyway, let me get out of here before I say something I don't need to say that's going to be on the internet forever, because I can't delete this video because I'm locked out of that Facebook account. Holla at your boy.